The competition within small form factor enclosures is getting pretty tight, and it's quite challenging to design a case that can utilize the space in the most efficient manner without too many compromises on hardware. And the SUGO series from Silverstone has gained its recognition in doing exactly that, offering small form factor computing to be used for HTPCs or mobile systems. So the new SG09 is really pushing the boundaries with an extremely high space efficiency that lets you build a high-end system. So let's check out how this $99 small form factor stacks up. And starting off with the front panel, we have a brushed aluminum look that is actually plastic, which allows this luxury aesthetic without you having to pay the premium. Now the design may look neutral and utilitarian, but it is far from a good looking case. Next up is the slim optical drive mount, which includes a mounting bracket to secure the optical drive along with the adhesive rubber pads to reduce vibration. And there's just enough room for the cables at the back, but like with everything else with this case, things are going to be pretty tight. And moving to the front, we have a dust filter that is easily removable and is actually meant to be used for your power supply. Then we have all the connections also located in the front with your power and reset buttons, two USB 3 ports and your audio jacks. And Silverstone includes the USB 2 adapter, which is an added bonus. On the side we have ventilation holes for your power supply to breathe and a full strip of airflow options for your graphics cards, which includes a built-in dust filter that also can be removed and accessed from the side. And here we have the mounting holes for 80 and 92mm fans for the left two slots and 120 or 92mm fan for the right slot. Now this array of cooling is specifically designed for your graphics cards and especially would be useful if you are running dual GPUs. Now on the other side we have more ventilation for an optional 80mm fan along with the little outdent that helps with the cable management. At the back we have an exhaust fan, I/O area, power supply plug, fan speed adjustments for the top fan with low or high setting, and 4 PCI expansion slots with additional venting. And the top houses a similar dust filter as on the side, also easily removable for cleaning, and it covers an included 180mm intake fan. Now this fan is a cooling powerhouse, Silverstone's own air penetrator. It directs airflow in a well-controlled manner towards all of your internals. And also included are these transfer brackets for installing a 140mm fan for the top, but you are probably best with sticking to the 180mm air penetrator. And so getting inside the case does require you to dip into your toolbox for a handy screwdriver. Now that's because the outer shell is separated into the side fan panel and the main top panel. Now the bottom is completely flat and Silverstone includes adhesive rubber feet that will add some stability to the case and also give the user a chance to mount the case either horizontally or vertically depending on your situation. And notice there's no ventilation holes in the bottom, so your second GPU may get choked, and that's the main reason there are 3 side fans. So getting inside the case, we get an additional 120mm exhaust, your motherboard area with support for micro ATX motherboards. This is very impressive for a case this size and really opens up your options in terms of building a high-end system. The power supply is located in a rather unconventional spot in the front with the cables facing the back panel. Then we have all this room dedicated specifically for your graphics cards. And check this out, we have 13.3 inches of clearance. And with 4 expansion slots, dual card support makes the SG09 very appealing. Also, CPU coolers up to 165mm are supported, which means most high-end towers are accommodated despite its small stature. And to further help with cooling, an optional 80mm intake fan can be installed at the back, and to avoid any unwanted noise from the fan, Silverstone includes an adhesive foam to be attached between the fan and the side panel. Now let's show you how space efficient this case really is, starting with the power supply. First we have the bracket that allows you to install the power supply either facing the inside or the outside, and working with our longer unit measured at 180mm in length, we have no problems fitting such a powerhouse inside this tiny chassis. And once you connected the power supply on the inside, you're good to go. Of course, if you are working with longer units, modular cables would be ideal. So at the back, 2 3.5-inch drives can be mounted onto this bracket with the connections facing the bottom. And since cooling is very limited at the back, we would recommend staying away from high-speed drives. But you can also mount 4 SSDs at the bottom with these brackets. However, you will have to remove them first in order to secure the SSDs, and due to such limited space, one of the SSDs must be upside down in order for the connections to have clearance. Moving on, there is a cutout right underneath the power supply to route your cables, but unfortunately no zip tie notches to secure the cables. So let's wire this thing up and see how it handles with cable management. Now again, modular power supplies are highly recommended just to avoid any unused cables taking up unnecessary space. And you can route the main cables through the top as well and use the bottom portion of the chassis to concentrate all of the rest of the clutter. And with everything routed, it is actually quite impressive. However, you do have to spend some time tucking away the cables and making sure things are properly connected. And also their assembly requires a very specific building sequence, and the manual really was a savior with great deal of information on how everything should be installed properly. One thing popped out with the accessories is this Molex to 3 fan connections cable, and Silverstone recognizes that you might not have enough fan headers on your motherboard to connect all of the possible fans in this case, so it's a useful thing to include for those wanting to utilize all the available fans inside the chassis. And so when it was time to mount the panels back onto the case, there seemed to be interference with the right fan and the PCI cables coming from your GPU. You might encounter this issue depending on your PCI cables, but slightly pushing in the panel and tightening it with screws, we got it to fit. And the fan has a pre-installed grill to prevent the cables from hitting the fan blades. Now, the same issue arose when trying to put on the top panel. It really is a challenge, especially with all the cables coming from your power supply. But nonetheless, a snug fit for both side panels, and you have yourself a high-end system in this absolutely tiny package. And for those frequent LAN events, Silverstone offers a travel bag that can be purchased separately that fits the SG09 and many other cases in the SUGO series. So arriving to an event with a gaming machine inside the gym bag is doing it in style, and this type of portability is very appealing. And for those just needing the small stature due to space limitations, this chassis does it all. Of course, except water cooling. So this new addition to the SUGO line is one engineering masterpiece. You'd never expect to fit this much into a 23-liter enclosure, and that's the beauty of the SG09. Its small form factor does not limit your options for a high-end system. With micro ATX support, dual graphics cards with up to 13.3 inches of clearance, 165mm for your CPU tower, with power supplies in length of 180mm are all taken care of. And your default cooling options are also quite impressive, with 3 included air penetrators and some 3 extra fan mounting options to avoid overheating. And a total of 6 drives can be installed inside the chassis, and again, it all comes down to small stature without any hardware compromises. And lastly, routing all your cables does require a specific assembly sequence, so make sure to spend some quality time with cable management. Now, on the critical side, the only thing I can mention is I would have liked to see ventilation holes along with a dust filter at the very bottom of the case. This would be useful for dual graphics cards, as the second card will practically be choked by the bottom panel, but the default cooling should suffice for even dual GPUs. So the SG09 really surpassed our expectations and could set a new standard for small form factor enclosures. It's functional, space efficient, and most importantly, welcomes enthusiast hardware. So at $99, this is one damn good value case. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and we'll see you in the next one.